Hi everyone, good morning. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Well, it is a really cold and snowy day here in Pennsylvania today, but I'm really excited for today because I feel like it's one of those full circle gardening days. And do you guys remember last year I grew for the first time Starflower, Scabiosa stellata? Well, I saved the seed from that and now we're going to plant it again next year, and I'm so excited. I think I have enough seed to give to our whole neighborhood. And this flower was just an absolute delight. You know, you really grow it for the seed pods, but it adds such texture and interest to an arrangement. And then of course you can also use it as a dried flower. I put a lot of it on our dried flower Christmas tree. And then all I did was just take it off the Christmas tree, put it in a box, and now we're just gonna remove the seeds from the heads and plant them all over again. So I just love doing things like that. And we're also going to plant another tray of Feverfew today because I can never have enough Feverfew. And I often get asked what are my favorite filler flowers, and it's such a hard question to answer because there are so many great ones, but I do feel like Feverfew is a filler that I don't see enough of. I have a lot of Feverfew here in my garden, but I still don't have enough. I can cut every single stem from the Feverfew I have. I probably have 48 plants right now, and it's just never enough. You know, last year I tried some new things. Like I grew Orlea for the first time as kind of a different white filler, and I was definitely not as happy with that as I was my Feverfew. So I think, why not grow the things that you know work? I know Feverfew works. I know it holds up well at the stand. It returns reliably as a perennial for me here in 6B. It's considered a tender perennial in zone 5 through 9, and it's relatively easy to start from seed. So why don't we go ahead and seed that tray of Feverfew, and then I want to show you these cool Starflower pods and really have the full circle gardening experience today. And actually, before we go in, we can even take a look at the Feverfew I have planted, which is buried right here. So it kind of gets a woody base over time, which is another reason why it's a good idea to replant it every so many years. But I mean, you can see how sad this looks right now, but this is going to look absolutely fine in the spring. So now we just have to convince Grace it's time to come in. Grace, you ready to do some seeding? Come on, we gotta go inside, it's so cold. Come on. It's a good girl. Before we get started, I can show you the snapdragons. You can see they pretty much all germinated at this point. So the dome's off, they're under lights. They have sticky traps in there for monitoring. And then in this tray, I have my yarrow. I do have about 48 yarrow plants already out in the garden, but I felt like I didn't have enough last year, so I'm going with another 48 this year. So the variety I'm sowing today is called Tetra White, and this is a really beautiful fluffy white variety that I've never grown before. The one I have outside is most similar to a Magic Green, but I can't recall the exact variety I planted initially. So these are small seeds, but since they're lighter colored, you can see them pretty well. And these guys want to be surface sown as well. It does seem like a lot of the cool flowers want to be surface sown rather than buried. Well, that worked out perfectly. I had just about 50 seeds in there. So I'll give these guys a spray on top. Sometimes I like to do that with surface sown seeds. It's not totally necessary, but it does seem to help a bit. And I have had trouble germinating Feverfew in the past. Go ahead and bottom water these guys. And while these cells soak up the water, let's go ahead and get those Starflower seed heads out and separate the seeds from the head. So I have more than enough Starflowers for one tray. And I may go ahead and just try direct seeding some of these as well and see how that goes. But I definitely want a nice stand of them again. So we really only need about 50 seeds. Probably on this one head alone is 20 seeds, and all you do is literally just kind of pull them out, and that's what the seeds look like. They kind of look like these little fuzzy helicopters, I guess. But let's see how many we get from one head. So I counted 32 seeds off one head, and isn't that amazing? I mean, look, I have this entire box from last year. I will never have to buy these seeds again. Now, let me get the camera to focus. Now you see these little black stars? Those aren't really necessary. You can take them off if you want, or you can just leave them too. It's not really gonna hurt. But so just by doing 2 heads, I'll have plenty for a whole nother flat of Starflower. Now, isn't that awesome? Just another reason to grow your own flowers and save your own seeds, because it'll save you literally hundreds or even thousands of dollars by doing so. So now let's go ahead and seed a tray of these saved Starflower seeds. You know what's funny about these is that on the Johnny's website, it says that the flowers are a pale blue. I'll put up some footage of the flowers if I can find it, or a picture of the flowers in my garden, and let me know if you think they're blue. To me, they sure look white, but maybe my eyesight is worse than I thought. If you're looking for really good information on whether or not to cover a particular cool flower, it says it right there in the Cool Flowers book. If you just turn to that particular flowers page, it will say either cover or do not cover. So Scabiosa says cover, and I've always covered mine. You can see I'm not covering them with too much soil. You could probably even say that I'm barely covering them. But I always follow Lisa's instruction for cool flowers in terms of covering or not covering. And if it's a tender annual that I've never heard her talk about before, I just can't remember how I've done it in the past, I will go ahead and reference Johnny's website. On Johnny's, it'll tell you if it needs covered or not. It will say, you know, it needs light to germinate or it needs covered. It'll tell you the temperature that germination occurs at. It'll tell you how many days to germination. So you just search the seed in question and then pop down to the tab that says growing information, and you should find everything you need right there. So here's the Feverfew on the heat mat, and we should see that in about 10 to 14 days. And over on this radiator, I have the Starflower. We should probably see that in about 10 days as well. Now, Feverfew is hardy down to a zone 5, and Scabiosa is hardy to zone 7. So I could do a fall planting of Feverfew. That was actually my original plan, but life just kind of happened last fall. So I'm doing a very early spring planting. But all of these things that I'm planting right now in February, they're all hardy annuals, and I plan to plant them all about 6 weeks before my last frost. So my last frost is April 23rd. So generally speaking, I start to harden things off and plant them out into the garden around St. Patrick's Day. But I do still pay close attention to the weather. You know, I don't want their first day out into the garden to be 10 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm really looking for the temperatures to have stabilized somewhat so that I'm not shocking them. And based on some questions I'm seeing, it might be helpful, and I'll link it in the description, to view the video that I put out probably on March 17th last year to see kind of what I'm planting out around that time of year, especially if you're newer to cool flowers or it just kind of seems like this foreign or weird concept to you to be starting flowers now in February while it's still obviously freezing cold and snowing out. I really can vouch for this working. I've seen it work over and over and over again. Even though it seems weird, this is when this group of flowers wants to be planted. Think of them almost like a viola or a pansy. We wouldn't plant pansies out in, you know, the heat of July. We would plant them out in March or April. Same thing with this entire group of flowers. Well guys, thanks so much for spending some time with me today. I have a question. Would you guys help me out? Are there any other flowers that you would like to seed together? I was contemplating doing a video on sweet peas just because the videos that I've seen on sweet peas are pretty different from the way I learned how to do things. But in terms of all the other hardy annuals, like I said, I really just follow the instruction of Lisa and Johnny's, but certainly if it's helpful to follow along with me or seed along with me, I'm more than happy to pull out the camera. But I also don't want it to just get kind of monotonous and boring. And really, a lot of these seeds are very similar. A lot of them are surface sown this time of year. So, Gracie, want to wish them goodbye? I think Gracie does want to wish you goodbye today. Happy gardening, guys. Bye.